How is everybody?
Good.
Good.
Happy
Hope
holidays
you
to
are.
everybody. And good to see you, Treasurer.
Mhm.
And you as well.
All right, so we are now live on the General Assembly's website. Lauren, can you just make sure that it's actually on the website? Uh, Governor's Salary Commission. Oh, I don't see it yet.
It will be in a few moments. It's a bit of a delay.
Okay, okay, now I see it. So,
All right.
all right, so we are live. Tom, do you want to start out?
Sure thing. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2025 Governor's Salary Commission. My name's Tom Elder. I'm one of the two co-staff on this commission, um, alongside Eric.
So, do we want to go through and let everyone introduce themselves? We do have some repeat appointees, but also some new faces. So why don't we start with the Senate appointees? Bruce, would you like to go first?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Bruce Plaxton. I'm an attorney in Howard County. I have served on this commission 3 other times. It's always an interesting endeavor, and I'm glad to see everybody.
All right.
I'm
Eleanor.
Eleanor Carey. I'm a retired lawyer, former Deputy Attorney General, and I have served on this commission, I think, twice before. But I've recently moved, and I threw out a lot of my old files, so I can't find them. Anyway, happy to see you all and happy to be able to contribute.
Jamar.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jamar Brown. I am a partner at Rosenberg Martin Greenberg, based in Baltimore. This is my second term serving on the Governor's Salary Commission, so I'm very happy to be here again and to be reappointed, and look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
The House appointees.
Good morning. My name is Anissa Walker. I'm a recent appointee. Looking forward to working with everyone. I am a resident of Prince George's County, a recent resident of Prince George's County, and I am currently a grant manager for federal funded programs.
Good morning. I'm Suzanne Brogan. I'm a retired state employee. I've held many jobs during my tenure with the state. Last was Deputy Treasurer for Public Policy. I have served on the Governor's Salary Commission once before, but Governor Glendening was governor at the time, so there's been a bit of a lapse in my my participation in this commission.
We also have the treasurer here as an ex officio member.
Thank you very much. As stated, my name is Derek Davis. I'm Maryland State Treasurer. Susan and I just missed each other as he was leaving, I was coming in. But if the Glendening administration, that was like 30 years ago. I came in with Governor Glendening. But it's always nice to have y'all. This is my first time on a commission, so I'm looking forward to learning how all of this works. So thank you.
All right, so we are gonna go briefly through the agenda. Then we will go through a presentation. Tom, do you want to run through the agenda? So just
Sure
an
thing.
overview of what we are gonna do today.
So the first part, we're going to discuss our organizational items, figuring out a chair of this commission amongst the body. Then we're going to do a quick review of constitutional and legal issues surrounding what we are all supposed to be doing here today. We will then review prior governor's salary recommendations, some of the compensation principles of why this is important, go over past salary data along with other states, and how that they handle this, discuss benefits provided to the governor and lieutenant governor, and schedule our next meeting and discuss that potential agenda. And finally, to close stuff off, to discuss additional information required from staff for our next meeting. So if there are any last minute questions or things that you just want to reemphasize that we look at, please bring that up, near the end, so that way we can make sure it's ready for our next meeting.
All right, can everyone see the presentation? Everyone good? All right, so In the past, this has been a fairly collegial commission, so we hope to keep that atmosphere. We encourage any of you to interrupt us at any time you have a question. We are going to get started with the presentation here. So our first order of business is the selection of a chairman. In the past, this has been pretty informal. Typically, we'll have someone nominate someone, be seconded. We have, I will say, a lot of experienced appointees here. So if anyone would like to make a motion, Mr. Brown.
Yes, thank you. I would like to move that we nominate Mr. Bruce Plaxton to serve as chair for this august body. I had the privilege of joining this commission 4 years ago when he served as chairman, and he did a fine job. And I think he'd do just as equally a good job this time around.
Happy to second that motion.
You allow me to be heard, I'm happy to do it. I appreciate the confidence, and I'm happy to do it again, and we certainly did not plan that. I was wondering, Jamar, who you were going to nominate for a moment, but I'm also, I've done it, I've chaired it the last 2 times, but I'm happy to step aside if someone else would like to do it.
You got it.
Yeah.
All right, well, staff is going to take that as a unanimous endorsement. With the chair's permission, we will continue with the presentation here. 1 second. Okay. All right, so just to cover the basic constitutional and legal issues, we do need at least 5 members to take any formal action. Our written recommendation has to be submitted within 10 days of the start of session. So this year session is starting a bit later, so that will be January 14th. And so that would make the recommendations due by January 24th. Now, we hope to get those, much earlier than that, but that is the constitutional deadline. We cannot recommend salaries lower than the current levels. The governor and lieutenant governor recommendations, those come in the form of a joint resolution. They have to be introduced within the 15th day session. If the commission recommends no change, there's no joint resolution. The General Assembly can lower anything that the commission recommends, but they can't decrease salaries below the existing levels, and they can't increase the salaries that we recommend. So just keep that in mind. So this is just a refresher of the action that was taken by the commission the previous cycle, 2021. Prior to the last cycle, the governors, well, actually all of the constitutional officers' salaries had been fixed for, I think, at least 1 cycle before that. So the increases were staggered in over the 4-year term of office. So currently we are in the 3rd year, so we're at 192 for the governor, and that is scheduled to increase again next calendar year. The lieutenant governor, similar, different, slightly lower levels. The other constitutional officers, AG, comptroller, treasurer, those are also on a phased-in basis, and the Secretary of State has its own slightly lower level. So the cycle before the previous one, there were no changes recommended by the commission. So salaries had been frozen the last time we met.
Eric,
yes, sorry.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I was just curious, before or at the time that the 2021 commission met, the first year was 184. Was that, how much higher was that from whatever the fixed salary had been for the previous 4 years?
So prior to that, it had been fixed at 180,000. So
180, okay.
and the lieutenant governor was 149,500.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, one question. How did it get from 180 to 184?
Well, I
Because
believe
it didn't look to me like there was that recommendation, but I might have just looked at this quickly.
well, that was what was in the resolution. So I believe that was the prior cycle's recommendation. It was definitely that was the joint resolution. So
That was
So
the
the-
21 commission. When we met 4 years ago, we approved that to start in 23.
In other words, was there an increase somehow? That was what I was just wondering.
Yes, yes.
How does that happen without a full commission?
We met in 2021 and it had
Right.
been frozen at 180 for 8 years. And we voted to go to 184.
Four,
To
okay.
go to 195, but to spread it out over
Right.
4-year
Right.
increments.
Okay.
So it was in the 2021 recommendation.
All right, Tom, do you want to briefly discuss the compensation principles?
Yeah, so to put this very briefly, is that the reason that the salaries are the way they are is that, generally speaking, the governor has the most responsibility over most aspects of state government. So historically, they've been paid more. And in that light, we also want to make sure that when it comes time for elections, we draw people who would be otherwise, maybe not interested in doing the job from other positions within state government. And that trickles down also down to, the other constitutional officers. We want to make sure that they're qualified people for these roles. So we want to make sure that there is some sort of salary there to, compensate them for their talents. So for the next slide, we're going to go over a series of appendices. Some of these are going to look familiar from past presentations. The first 5 are Maryland specific, while the last set of slides are comparisons to other states. What are they paying their similar constitutional offices or similar roles and things of that nature. All right. So the next slide.
We briefly discussed this already, but if you can,
Yeah, we did.
You want to just discuss the,
So
tradition.
traditionally, the governor will send over notice or a letter indicating whether or not they would like us to consider the salaries of the other constitutional officers. So that is the Secretary of State, Attorney General, Treasurer, and the Comptroller. We did get notice of this for this go-around. For comparison's sake, we did not get one for the 2021 Governor Salary Commission. And the notice was simply that they asked us to consider it with no other information provided.
All right. So we are now going to go through the exhibits here. We did discuss these in one of the PowerPoints, and I apologize. We meant to not include so much history here, but somehow this didn't get taken out. So I apologize. This is a lot of history, so we're just going to skip through a lot of these. But if you're interested in the history of the commission's recommendations and the actions, we have history going back to 1977. So,
Geez.
yes, quite a long history. All right, so Appendix 4, we have the salary level since 2019 of the constitutional officers, the deputy officers, and the judiciary. You can see, as we talked about before, the constitutional officers had been frozen prior to the 2021 cycle, and then the previous commission phased in a series of increases over 4 years. So you can see we're currently in 2025. So there's one more step to go next year. So that's something we could, consider in our recommendations is that we still have a year to go of the final phase in from the previous commission. This was
Eric, I just want to point out that when you see the right column, the 6%,
Hmm.
that's aggregate over 4 years. It was more like a 2% raise per year, 1.5 to 2% per year,
Right.
which was probably below inflation. Just
It
for
was a
anyone
little.
reading that chart, we didn't give out 6% raises.
Right. Yeah, that's just over the 4-year period. But yeah, you're correct. It was roughly like 2%. I have a spreadsheet that we can bring up later that has the year by year percentages.
Question, and is the 2% is typically done each year?
I
I
mean,
guess my question is, how are we determining the percentage change? How's that?
Well, I could answer that because if you go back historically, back to the 2013 commission, it was not a percentage, it was a flat 5,000 per year because it had been frozen for 4 years then. So it would have been, it was kind of a catch up. So this commission has done a number of things. It's done above inflation, it's done no increase 8 years ago, and then it's done one that was in line with inflation. And in 2009, they recommended an increase that was rejected by the legislature. So it's all over the place. We have no guidance on that from prior commissions. They've done it as a percentage, they've done it as a flat rate, and they've done no raise. So, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Bruce, one thing that is a surprise is the deputy comptroller's salary. 362,000 and a percentage increase over that period of time of 87%.
We don't set those salaries.
Okay, I just wondered how that happened.
Well, I think what's interesting is if you look at certain things, one of the reasons we gave the Attorney General and some of the constitutional officers bigger raises than even the governor proportionately in past commissions was because we have a situation where, deputy attorney generals are making more than their boss.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting thing. And in those situations, I think it's to attract talented people. And the elected officers, there's no shortage of people running for attorney general or governor. And there may be other perks to those positions. So it's an interesting situation where deputy attorney generals or deputy comptroller, even the deputy treasurer makes more than the treasurer. It's just an interesting, yes. So,
and the deputy comptroller makes twice what the comptroller makes.
Right.
It seems, I don't know, extraordinary, but whatever.
Yeah, we also have, county executives in this state that make more money than the governor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So regarding deputy constitutional officers, the attorney general and the treasurer track or were tracking, but then there's a deviation beginning in 2024. It's hard for me to follow, but looking at this Appendix 4, the 3 officers, then they just have individual salaries. And how was that determination?
I think that's just for informational for us, just like the judges' salaries, because this commission has no control over the hiring and the salaries set by the treasurer's office or the comptroller's office or the attorney general's office.
Right, but this category, deputy constitutional officers, that's just their staff then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
That's the clarification. Okay, great, thank you.
They do to some degree of, impact our decision making.
It's pretty remarkable.
Or could, even though we don't set those salaries.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So moving on to the cabinet secretaries. Now, I just want to sound a word of caution here when you look at this. These are the maximum end of the range. So the individuals in this position are not necessarily being paid the maximum amount. So there's a minimum, a midpoint, and a maximum range. So they have gone up significantly in terms of the maximum like ceiling, but that doesn't necessarily mean the person in that position is being paid that exact amount. But there have been some significant increases in the maximum. All right. Tom, do you want to discuss the county executives?
Well, you guys had mentioned that there are some county executives who are making more than the governor, and here is that slide talking about it. As you can see, particularly, these are meant to be comparisons of what the larger counties and Baltimore City executives are making. And as you can see, City of Baltimore, Howard, Montgomery, and Prince George's are making more than the governor as right now. And on average, the increase of their all position salary was about 9%. But keep in mind, Anne Arundel County didn't increase their executive salary last year. So just not a hard and fast rule, just meant to be a illustrative point. Next slide.
All right, so we're not going to go through this in excruciating detail, but these are you can see in the second column here, these the governor's retirement and pension benefits. In the past, although not recently, the commission has recommended changes to some of the retirement benefits, but currently, the reason this hasn't been changed by recent commissions is that the level of the retirement salary is pegged to a percentage of the current governor. So the reason, I guess the rationale it hasn't been changed recently is because assuming the salary commission is adjusting the governor's salary regularly, this would be automatically pegged to that. So just one thing to point out. But we can make, looking back at the history, we do have, the ability to recommend changes to retirement and pension benefits. But we have not done so recently.
And besides the governor, all the other, everyone else falls under the employee pension system?
Well, it depends on the category of the personnel category. So judges, state.
No, I'm sorry. I meant the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, the comptroller, and the treasurer.
I believe they would be under, you know what? That's a good question. I believe they.
Yeah, I think they're under the employees pension system.
Yeah, I want to double check with our personnel analyst to make sure I don't give you the wrong answer, but that sounds right to me, but we will double check.
Thank you.
Let's see here. All right. So Appendix 7 goes through, a long detailed history of general salary increases, increments, other, one-time bonuses, deferred compensation matches for state employees. For our purposes, I think we want to look carefully at the past 4 fiscal years. So looking at 23, 24, 25, 26, we can see the general salary increases for state employees have been pretty substantial. They're fiscal 23, there were actually 2, one July 1st, one November 1st, and varying amounts in subsequent years. Actually, we have a separate spreadsheet with CPI data, but for these past 4 fiscal years, it looked to me like they have beat CPI. So it's now, looking back, that's a little unusual. So there were many years where, you can see none. So that's just one factor we may want to consider. All right, footnotes here. All right, Tom, do you want to go over the constitutional officers?
So now we're getting into the point of looking at what other states are doing in terms of their constitutional officers as compared to Maryland. Appendix 8, as I mentioned previously, is the broad picture showing every state and what they're paying. Now, something to keep in mind is that some states don't have comparable positions, like Alaska doesn't have a comptroller, or a specific role is handled by a different entity with similar responsibilities, like Secretary of State in Arizona will handle the responsibilities normally handled by a lieutenant governor. So this is just meant to sort of be like the head slide before we get further down in comparing the other states in terms of what they are offering in compensation. Next slide. So starting with the governor's salary,
Wait,
you can
Tom,
see,
Tom,
yes.
can we just let's just bring this up right away. This data is from the Council of State Governments, so that's the same data source we have used in past cycles. However, there's always a lag of at least 1 year. In this case, there is a 2-year lag. They have not updated the data to 2024 yet. We did get in touch with them, and it has not been updated to 2024 yet. So we have sort of a memo we can circulate that the Council of State Governments did for us that is a smaller regional comparison of the constitutional officer salaries, compared to Virginia, Pennsylvania, the neighboring states, that we can circulate.
Mhm.
But we just want to be clear that
Yeah, this is what
This
we're
is-
talking about right now is 2023 salary data. So
this does not reflect the current actual salary of the
Mhm.
governor. It's historical.
So based off of the 2028 data, sorry, 20.
Whoa.
20
Refreshing.
Wow.
In addition to time travel,
Tom, you're
we are also
predicting the,
offering salary
future.
suggestions. Pardon me. So as you can see, compared with 2023 data, Maryland is about 11th in ranking. That's a drop in 2 spots from 2021. So not much movement. Typically, for the governor, we've stayed in the upper third of states in terms of compensation. So let's go to the next one.
All right. So I believe that one
Hmm.
is mine. So these are the governor's salaries ranked by population of the state. So this is usually a major factor that the commission considers when setting salary levels. I will point out that we're at basically the same level the previous cycle. So last time we were 19th. So, pretty stable level here when ranking by salary by population of the state. All right. So, ranking by per capita income, Maryland, you can see, is a 10th. Historically, we have been a bit higher on this ranking. Previously, we were 7th, so we've fallen a few places here. States that have moved ahead of us here are Colorado, Wyoming, New Hampshire actually has moved ahead of us. Just barely. So this has changed a little bit. All right, Tom, do you want to go through the rest of the constitutional officers?
Yes. So now we're getting into lieutenant governor's salary. Again, 2023 data. So we were previously ranked 7th back in 2021 with a salary of $149,500. We're now at 10th. Small drop, but we're still ballpark, pretty similar where we were before. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Don't think we need to dwell on these too much. For the comptroller, we have, which one am I? Sorry, I got mixed up in my head about where I am. So we're in comptroller, yeah. Comptroller stuff, again, hasn't changed much as well. Again, previously 149,500, and we were previously ranked 16th in 2021. We raised a spot. So, again, not much movement. Keep going.
And just keep in mind that, a huge caveat with these comparisons, particularly for the non-gubernatorial offices, is the functions of the functions of the office may not be exactly the same responsibilities. So it's a big caveat.
That and some offices are bigger than others, so just keep that in mind. This is meant to be just a very high level snapshot. All right, where are we? We're on treasurer. Again, we were previously ranked 12th. We're now ranked 13th. Not much movement. Keep going. Attorney General. Yeah, we dropped one spot from 16th position to 17th. Again, not much movement. And the one deviation from all this is the Secretary of State. Instead of being in the top third, we're in the bottom half based on 2023 data. But again, within the realm of comparing between 2 years, Maryland is now ranked 29th from 27th. So again, not much movement. But keep in mind, the Secretary of State's office is much smaller compared to everyone else. They own, based on the governor's budget books for the fiscal 2025 budget, there are only 29 full-time positions with 10 contractuals. So it's a much smaller footprint than the others.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this, and I think we are going to go to we're going to ask the chair how he would like to proceed. We do have some inflation data if you want to get into that, or if anyone wants to go ahead and start the discussion of any thoughts on current salary levels.
I'm
Eric,
happy to hear
how about
the-
the benefits of the governor receives in particular?
There is a long list of benefits that are in the prior report. Where are these? Let me see. Okay, so it's quite a long list. You've got
Yeah,
health
I just
insurance.
wondered how we're going to consider that. I mean, I think they should be considered because the governor's salary, I mean, includes housing, among other things.
Does. I don't know that from my recollection of watching the prior commission, there wasn't like a dollar amount added to all of those, but they are major factors. I'm not sure how we would quantify like a total of all of these. Some of them are maybe difficult to come up with a exact
Ellie,
dollar.
rather than a number, would you like Eric or
The
Tom
list.
to list
Oh,
what the
yeah.
major? I mean, you don't have to obviously go through every benefit, but
No,
there's a
but just
cost,
the
there's a
major
driver,
ones. Yeah.
there's housing. I don't know if there's a meal allowance.
I'm happy to read through them because we have them in the prior report, just the major categories. So obviously, health insurance, prescription drugs, vision, dental, catastrophic health coverage, accidental death and dismemberment, life insurance, tax sheltered health spending account, tax sheltered childcare spending account, workers' comp, credit union membership, deferred compensation, 457, 401k program. Those are the major categories.
Yeah, plus housing, food.
Yeah.
Transportation.
There is a small, I believe it was like between 100 and 200,000 for, I think it was like a formal, I don't know if it was, I don't know what the category was. It was like something to do with formal events, something like that. I don't know
Like
that
events hosted at Government House.
yeah, something along those lines, but I don't know that you could attribute it as being like accrued to the governor necessarily.
We glossed over the pension. I mean, I know you put it on the chart,
Right.
but it's a pretty
Right.
significant pension for the
Right.
governor.
We can go back.
And it's non-contributory too.
Yeah, it's
Right.
my recollection is it's 50% of the current governor's salary. So a governor who was governor 12 or 15 or 20 years ago making 100 grand is now getting a pension of 90 grand.
Right.
Almost 100% of salary, even though it's set at 50%, because it's 50% of the current governor's salary, it's a nice pension.
All right, here we are. Let me show
And we
you.
lowered that 12 years ago because it started no matter how young you were, and we put age limits on it.
There we go.
Because the idea was a governor elected at 40 shouldn't start collecting that pension at 48 years old.
Yeah, so it's 1/3
So
of
they
the
were
current
now-
annual.
Yeah, you could see that we put a 55-year-old age limit on it for a two-term governor and 62 for a single-term governor.
Oh, actually, this lists some of them. Okay. All right.
Clearly, the governor gets certain benefits that the other constitutional officers don't get.
Yeah.
Does anyone have questions for Eric or Tom that were not covered?
I have a question, Mr. Chair, that may require some research. Most recently, the General Assembly rejected increases that the commission recommended in 2009, the 2010 term. Do we know, the basis for the General Assembly rejecting that increase, or can we glean from,
Wasn't that the budget?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't that the budget? If I recall, the budget was in bad shape then. I don't believe state employees were getting a raise around that time. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was because of budgetary constraints.
I
Okay,
think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my recollection.
thank you.
I know the budget is just being put together, but is there any discussion in terms of state employees for the next fiscal year? I was trying to find the chart that showed state employee raises.
So we don't know for fiscal 27. I think there are ongoing talks with the unions.
Unions.
It's it's going to be a negotiation. It is going to be a difficult budget year. But we don't know what the outcome of the negotiations will be. I think it could be between 1-2% potentially, but we don't know.
Do we know anything about whether the legislators are giving themselves a raise or considering a raise?
Well, I believe actually the other compensation commissions are meeting. One of them, I believe the General Assembly Compensation Commission is meeting today at 1 p.m. So assuming we're, hopefully we'll be done by then, we can tune in and see what they direction they might be going in. But I don't know currently. There is also the Judicial Compensation Commission, which is also meeting.
So does anyone want to start the conversation, and do you want to start at the top with the governor and then consider the constitutional officers? That seems to be how we've done it in the past, but I'm open to any suggestions. We can do it any way we want.
That your way is as good as any, Bruce.
All right. Well, let's recap the governor's salary. It's gone up about 2% the last 4 years, and for 4 years before that, it was frozen. But we seem to be keeping pace with the rest of the country, since we are number 11 in salary, and most of the states above us are states like California, New York, Illinois, big states. I think Connecticut. I guess the first question is, do we want to consider a raise? And then we can talk about how we're going to compute that.
Well, if we consider a raise to increase the salary, are we going to be looking at staying within that 2% margin?
That's up to this committee. Yeah, I don't know. The inflation numbers for this year and last year are about 3%, which though don't have to guide us at all. That's just what I'm reading in the news, that it's about 3% the last 2 years.
So if
During COVID, though, it was as high as 7 or 8%. But we seem to still be keeping pace with other states, though we don't know what they're doing since the data is 2 years old.
So if it would be helpful, we do have some inflation data, and we have a couple of
Yes.
scenarios. If you all would be interested, I can bring that
Yes.
up.
That would be
Yeah,
that would be
better
great.
than me giving the committee anecdotal evidence.
Actually, you were pretty on the mark. So let me just bring this up. So, all right. So, can everyone see this? Should I zoom in more?
Mhm.
All right. So, this first set of numbers, these are the actual salaries through calendar 26. So these are the prior fully phased in salaries. Assuming we make no recommendation, they will stay at this level. If the commission were to set the salaries based on inflation projections, you can see here they would go up by 2.5%, 2%, 2%. So, in the 2% range for both governor and lieutenant governor. And then, we would also have to consider the other officers. I don't know if this is helpful or if it might be confusing, but as sort of a thought experiment, I took the previous salary level in 2022, so that's before the prior commission made changes. If we had grown that salary amount by inflation since 2022, it would, be at basically 204,000 next year versus 195 in a current law. So you can see the compounding effect that that it would have if we had pegged it to inflation for the past several years.
And Eric, where would that 204,000 put us relative to other states?
Tom, do
that
you have the
ranking?
list by chance?
I could quickly pull up the 2023 data. What was the number again you wanted us to put against? It was 200.
204.
That would be calendar 2028.
2028. Okay. 204 for Maryland would be 204 would be between 6th and 7th. We'd be competing with Illinois and Tennessee.
Okay,
Now,
thank
but
you.
we just want to clarify that's holding
2023 data.
that would be
Right.
holding everyone else constant. So that would assume no other states change
Right,
their own salaries, which probably is, not going to be actually the case.
right. Got it.
I think it's fair to say over the last 8 years, we've not kept up with inflation. Certainly not even in the last 4 years when we gave out raises or the General Assembly approved that recommendation, and certainly the 4 years before that, it was frozen.
Yeah, had we had the prior commission set the increases to inflation, then rather than 195,000 next year, it would be more like 204,000.
I mean, one thing here, first of all, what's the average salary in Maryland?
75,000, is that what the chart said?
That's I think that's the per capita personal income. So
I think that's Ellie's question, right?
Yeah, right.
uh,
Yeah, I don't think, we're in a situation right now where we have we don't know what the budget deficit is going to be. We don't know what's happening, really federally, et cetera. I didn't know whether or not we would ever consider suspending the increase for a year. In other words, wouldn't start with the 26, 27.
I mean, we do I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, I just assumed that was on the table because those raises have always been, for the most part, phased in. So you could start it on year one, or you could start it year two,
Year
year
two,
three,
yeah.
or do it in all year four. I just assumed that whatever if we chose to do a raise, it was going to be phased in at some point. I'd never thought we were going to do it all, at one
No,
time.
I didn't think we were, but I wondered, just having zero increase for the first year, or
Understand.
perhaps 2 years, I don't know, but something of that. I mean, given where people are these days, I'm not sure we should just sort of look at it as this is what governors are getting. I think the data that we're looking at is very significant of other states, sizes of the states. I think we should consider the benefits that this governor gets. We obviously don't have the data as to what every other governor has, but that would be, I think, too much to expect. But I mean, I think we should consider these things and not just look as it ought to go up a certain percentage, but how, what's the rest of the population feeling at this moment, or, actually encountering. Just it's a thought for us to consider.
No, that's a very legitimate way to approach it. We could do a freeze of 1 or 2 years and then implement raises in years 3 and 4 of our decision-making process. I mean, one of the things, because this commission doesn't meet every year,
Right.
is we do have to look into the future 3 or 4 years and see where we're at.
I share the same concerns. I mean, the budget, uncertain and potentially problematic budget outlook gives me a lot of concern around approving or recommending an increase for this year, for sure.
When you say this year, it would be
Next
Well,
year.
Next year, yeah,
2027.
right.
Right.
27, 28, I think.
It would take effect the next term of office. So
Yeah, just
after the election. So
Mhm.
next year. So
and keep in
2020.
mind, we do have one more year of salary increases coming in from the prior recommendation.
Right.
So
Right.
that is coming. That is forthcoming.
Regardless of what we do today or at our next meeting, there is a raise in 26.
Mhm.
Right, which is about just over 1.5% for the officers we were looking at, I think, is what Eric put up.
1.6. So yep.
So I don't want to stifle debate, but am I hearing a consensus that in light of what the constituents are hearing and our fellow citizens and the budget constraints with programs being cut, that we consider freezing salaries for 1 or 2 years? I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. I just don't know if that's what I'm hearing. I think that's what Ellie and Jamar.
That was what I was saying.
Yeah. And then
What happened in 3 and 4 years, 3 and 4?
yeah, that was my question, Suzanne, is are we going to look at raises after the next presidential election in 29 and 30? Not that I'm tying it to a presidential election, just giving context.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
and this is all awkward for me for obvious reasons. And I checked with ethics folks and everything, and then they reminded me, you may not be treasurer at the next time, so no, you don't have a conflict. And I was like, okay. But here was one of the things I remembered from when I was a delegate. I want to say it was in the early 2000s, as the commissions were meeting. I think it could have gone 2 cycles without raises. It might have only been one, and the first one was phased in. It's been 25 years, so I don't quite remember. But what I remembered at the end of all of that, the salaries had fallen off so much that that they thought wasn't no longer appropriate. So there was an enormous increase going into the following term. I don't know if it was the term after or 2 terms after. And that I remember, that raised a few eyebrows as well. So I guess what I'm saying, it's a fine line that you sort of walk. On the one hand, you want to be cognizant of what's going on, the budget and things of that nature. But if there aren't periodic adjustments, at least based upon past experience, at some point, folks come in and go, all right, this is really out of whack. And so then you get this huge increase, which also looks bad, under any circumstance when you come in with this huge increase. And so I wanted to be mindful of that. And then I also think when we're talking about looking at numbers, maybe the mid-Atlantic region, you want to drill down on that, a Delaware, a Pennsylvania, a New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, or I think Massachusetts is still mid-Atlantic, but whatever the case may be,
Right.
That's sort of a peer-to-peer kind of look, because if you compare it maybe to some places in the South, if you look at it sort of globally, I think it may look out of whack now, but the reality is that's not really who we sort of compete against, that those aren't our peers. It's more the mid-Atlantic region. So that might be, a way to judge it as well. How's that little area doing?
So Treasurer, to give you, to point out what you said, what happened was salaries were frozen for the governor at 150, and because it had been frozen for so long, when we did this in 2013, we had to jump it up to 180 over a 4-year stretch, which was a 20% increase. So that's exactly what happened, because we were way behind in 2013. The first year, the governor got a 10% increase to 165, and then $5,000 a year for 3 years after that, because there had been no raise. So yes, it puts the next commission or the next people who are going to look at this in an interesting situation if we don't keep up.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I actually do have some regional data that was put together for us from the Council of State Governments that might be helpful. It is our regional comparison, if you all want to see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let me bring that up. Okay. All right, so we have this memo they did for us since all 50 states were not done. So this is a little bit more up to date from 2024. You can see where we fall within sort of the region, and this includes the DC mayor, which is obviously not exactly comparable.
It's interesting. We're right in line with New Jersey, Virginia, and Delaware, slightly above, but New York and Pennsylvania are 30 or 40% higher, but they seem to be anomalies. I mean, does everyone think that's right about where we ought to be?
In the middle of our region?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, within $5,000 to $10,000 perhaps, but yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I do agree with the treasurer's observations though around, making sure that when we reconvene or a commission reconvenes in 4 years, that we're not so out of step that we're looking at, a significant increase.
Right. Which is why I asked in the scenario of freezing years 1 and 2, what happens in 3 and 4?
Right.
3 and 4, are you making up for the fact that you froze 1 and 2? Or in 3 and 4, are you just looking at an inflationary change? And
I mean, one way to
that's kind
handle
of a
that.
rhetorical question, because we don't have, I mean, we're just thinking this through, but to me, if you freeze the first 2 years, then in 3 and 4, are you making up for that freeze? Or in 3 and 4, are you just taking steps that a 2% kind of increase? And to what Treasurer Davis just said, maybe a 4-year time frame is too short a time to look at it, but in years 3 and 4, we might be thinking a larger number to make up for 1 and 2, and then
I think you could look at 1 and 2 as a freeze and be deferential to the situation now, with the idea that we will be caught up in years 3 and 4. You could give twice as much, or you could give an aggregate, as if it was compounded, more like a 6 or 7% raise in year 3, and kind of catch up for the 2 years these officers didn't get a raise. I don't want to diminish what's going on, and I don't want these comments to be taken out of context, but a lot of this is symbolic in terms of the state budget. A few $1,000s for 6 people
Right.
is not going to significantly affect the budget. It's more a matter of
perception.
perception. Exactly, Suzanne. Thank you.
Are we thinking that I don't know, are we wedded to the idea it would be 2 years as opposed to 1?
2 years of
2 years of not
freeze.
no raise, which obviously gives more pressure on the last 2 years. Here's another factor or possible consideration. We make it conditional on where the budget is at the end of.
I don't think we can we do that?
We probably could.
I think they have to vote on a number. I don't think we can make
Yeah,
it.
no, there's some thought that it's almost like a performance. If the budget, we bring it, we revise these figures so frequently, and our income may be significantly higher than is anticipated.
But they have to vote on this within 15 days of the legislature opening.
Right.
And then you can change the salary once they're in office.
Once they're in line, okay.
I like the idea of perhaps just doing a freeze for 1 year, particularly given that the salaries are already locked in for the next year, for 2026. It gives us that 2-year window, I think, to see how these budget issues resolve for our state.
Except we don't have the benefit of a look back, because we're going to have to decide now still on 28, 29, and 30.
Right. We're kind of assuming that for 2 years or 1 year or whatever the freeze period is, the budget is going to be very challenged, and then after that everything's fine.
Well, I don't know that I'm assuming that. I think, going back to the treasurer's point, we do kind of have an obligation here to make sure that there is some increase, just based on the fact that these are people doing a very hard job at a very high level, and we want those salaries to be commensurate with our peers. I think we are, to some degree, making a symbolic gesture, though, recognizing the fact that the budget outlook right now is problematic, it's hard to justify an increase given what we know the state of affairs to be at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so the discussion seems to be about freezing years 1 and 2, and the reason we would be freezing them is because of the budgetary constraints that Maryland is facing. That is a question.
Yeah, I mean, that's for my
Yeah.
speaking for myself, that's my concern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's also because of the constraints that the population, people are facing right now. That's, um, this is not, the way I'm approaching it is probably more political than mathematical. And just some consideration for the fact that other people are, in significant difficulties financially. And to, expand a salary that's now will be at the end of next year or next year at 195,000. Maybe a little hard for these are the people who pay the taxes, for heaven's sakes.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, having been both a state employee and now not a state employee, um, I understand the value of the work that's done. Um, on the other hand, we do have budgetary constraints here, which we may or may not get worse.
I mean, one question I have for Mr. Chair and perhaps our staff is, should this body be making those kinds of political
Right.
considerations? And for Mr. Treasurer.
You know what? I was going to keep quiet on that, but Mr. Brown, I'm glad you brought it up, because what I was going to say is this. I think we have to be mindful of our recommendation, but by the same token, and I mean this very respectfully, we aren't the appropriations committee or
Right.
budget and tax or even the full body. I think we should look at it like what we think is fair and all of that. But when it comes to what the budget is going to look like 2, 3, 4 years down the road, I would leave that to them. And if they think that this is inappropriate, see, all we're doing really is just making a recommendation. We're not making the final decision. That's up to them. And so if they look at that and go, nah, we can't accept it, then they can do like they've done previously and vote it down. And, respectfully, no skin off our nose. We did what we thought was appropriate and all of that. But if they think, because they have the ultimate responsibility for enacting, their one constitutional responsibility is to enact a balanced budget. Everything else is nice, but they have that one constitutional responsibility. And if they think that the budget, and they respectfully, they know the budget situation far better than we will. They do it every year and, yada, yada, yada. If they think that we're going to be in rocky waters for the foreseeable future, and if they think it's the responsible thing to do to shut it all down, so be it. But I think it may be a bit, we're wading in the deep waters trying to visualize what the budget may be like. And we don't have a department of, well, actually we do have DLS here, but not all the things that they have at their disposal. And I think that would be unfair to ask any of you all to take on that level of responsibility when they get paid to do that, quite frankly.
I agree.
That was precisely my question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That flips the way we're looking at this.
Yeah.
We're not responsible for perception. We're responsible for what's fair. And as staff pointed out to us early on, the legislature can lower our recommendation, but they can't raise it.
Right.
So if we send them a freeze, they cannot give anyone a raise next year. But if we send for instance, a 3% raise for everybody over the next 4 years, they can say, hold on. They can have this discussion, say, we're going to freeze it for 1 or 2 years and then put the raises in effect.
Correct.
No, those are the people getting paid to make those decisions. So that's, I think both of you just flipped the way I was thinking about this, because I don't have to be politically expedient.
Well, I'm sorry.
Look, I do haven't said all that. I do.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I mentioned the word because it's become so fraught. But I think one of the things that what we're going to be doing then, and I think we ought to articulate what we're doing in the report, is that we're basing it solely on what the sort of fairness with respect, particularly the governor, in relationship to other states that, so we are not looking at anything else. We're not looking at the budget constraints that we're undergoing right now. I still think we ought to look at them and have that consideration in mind, at least, and then present it to the legislature if we want to have them make that decision and have us not consider it at all in our recommendation.
I feel like Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof. You're over it. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, but anyway.
Yes, I wasn't suggesting we should ignore the realities of our economy.
Right.
Yeah. But I think that we can give parameters and the legislature can reject it or knock it down if they see fit too.
May I ask a question about the last commission where
Mhm.
a couple of you all were on that, and it was a 2% raise each year?
It was sort of rounded. It's Eric had the chart. It was like
It was-
2.6, 2.1, 2.
So
It wasn't.
did you, I guess my question is, when you were thinking about salaries, did you pick numbers or did you pick percentages?
We picked not, they're all round numbers. It's a $4,000 raise, a $4,000 raise, a $4,000 raise, and then a $3,000 raise. I think what we had decided was there'd be a $15,000 raise spread out over 4 years. So it went 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, 3,000, which, because it's on the total, the percentage was slightly lower each year. So it was like 2.6%, 2.4, 2.1, 1.6, something like that. But it was basically, hey, that's my recollection, and that's consistent with the numbers, that it was a $15,000 raise for the governor and a similar raise spread out over 4 years for the other constitutional officers. Yeah.
Right. And it seems, in looking at the comparison, there's a little movement, but generally speaking, at least 2020, I guess those are based on 2023 numbers, but Maryland has pretty much maintained wherever it is in the pack, it's kind of stayed in that position.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like we ought to be in the top 10, top 11. We used to be top 7 in income. Now we're top 10 in income in the country.
And the reason I ask is, I guess in my own mind, I think percentages, because I think what's the rate of inflation? So I'm thinking percentages as opposed to dollar amounts.
Yeah, yes. Yes. I think the governor has different benefits than everyone else does. I think we've done a good job over the last 12 years of catching up the other officers, where now they make, I believe, I don't know if I just wrote down, the lieutenant governor makes 175 and the other officers make a little less, maybe 165. But they've caught up, because I thought they were
in 2026. Everybody but the governor will be at 175, except not the Secretary of State, but
yeah.
the
Okay, so
LG.
they've caught up proportionately.
Yeah.
And to me, what struck me is how much less they got paid from their senior staff. And I understand that there's a benefit to being in charge and having the title, but our other constitutional officers seemed underpaid.
Well, the governor earns less than some of his cabinet secretaries.
Yep.
And at least from my days on the Appropriations Committee staff, which was a very long time ago, it had to do with attracting competent secretaries.
Mhm.
But so if inflation is 2 to 3% and forecast to be that too, Bruce, or staff?
It's the forecast is around 2.5% for 27, and then it sort of goes to 2, then 1.7 to 2. It's in the 1.7 to 2.6 range. Of course, it's a forecast, so we don't know for sure, but that is the current Moody's forecast.
Okay.
So after Jamar and the treasurer putting this in a little different light, are we still talking about freezing 1 year, or now we're looking at inflation-related raises for all 4 years?
See it both ways.
This is not as easy as we all thought it was, right?
I guess for myself, I was thinking before Treasurer Davis was so eloquent in stating it, I was thinking, okay, what is our role versus the role of the legislature and who are the policymakers? And I think for myself, I was thinking that we should pick numbers that reflect what is fair, what keeps the governor and the other officers in the pack of mid-Atlantic states or whatever, and that because the legislature can lower but not raise our recommendations, that if they decide based on budgetary constraints or what the legislative salary group does or whatever, that they can make that decision. I think I was more inclined, if we're contemplating raises going in the 4-year cycle, I was thinking doing it every year, but I'm not willing to fall on a sword about that, but that was my own thought.
Well, if we increased, let's just say at 2% over the next 4 years, we'd be looking at, for the governor, an increase of $15,600 based on his 2026 salary. So I just throw that number out there so that we could have something to work from.
I think that we should look at the increases for all 4 years, not freezing anything so that we're not playing that catch up in years 3 and 4, maintaining it at the 2%. And as indicated, if the legislature, decides not to recommend that, that's, they're well within their discretion to do so based on the budget. But I recommend going forward with the inflation rate of 2% for all 4 years, not freezing any year.
Well, since Jamar did the math for us, it's about $15,000 over the next 4 years. We could do the same thing the last commission did, which was 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, and 3,000 in the last year. Or if you want to give the smaller raise in the first year, you could go 3,000 in the first year and then 4,000 a year for 3 years. I mean, I like that idea rather than having odd numbers for a salary. I just think it looks weird that.
You mean that a percentage would? Yes, that makes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to give a raise of $2,815 or something.
Right.
Right.
And the minutes will reflect, the record will reflect that we did it based on, sort of a inflationary based percentage.
And remind me, Eric or Tom, the legislature, can they reduce the amount for like 1 year, or do they have to do something for all 4?
I believe they can amend it any way they want, right?
Yeah, the Constitution doesn't add any restrictions on, just says they can reduce it.
I mean, we just put a ceiling on it.
Okay, so if they decide year 1, they think a freeze is appropriate, they could not do an increase for year 1, but could keep the increases for years 2, 3, and 4 that we are recommending.
That's my understanding.
That's what they, okay.
can we look at the numbers for the Mid-Atlantic again? And do we have any idea of what
Yeah.
they're planning?
I think this came up the last cycle, and so we kind of don't have any way of knowing. So, like,
They're
for
planning.
example, if I was asked about it, I wouldn't be able to say what we're doing. So I doubt other states would. So I don't know that that's a knowable. Here, let me share this.
Could you send us those?
Yes, we will circulate this.
Circulate them, right?
Okay.
What we do know, Eric, is that had we applied inflation
Mhm.
4 years ago, we would have been $10,000 higher for the governor.
Mhm.
We even with the increases we've recommended over the years, we've fallen behind inflation, right?
Yes, we are behind what it would otherwise have been had it been indexed to inflation, starting from the prior salary from 2022.
I like where this puts us, projecting out to, I guess, 2030, and assuming that there is some movement in these other mid-Atlantic states.
I mean, it moves us to 210,000 if we take the 2% number.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And even based on these 2024 numbers, it still, I think, puts us in a.
No, we'll be no higher than third or fourth, and if you count DC, we'll be still in the same spot, and it's possible the other states even surpass us.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're not out of line.
So, Mr. Chairman, what's our rationale for doing this? What's our and does the report include that sort of discussion?
I think in past reports, there has been a narrative of what we consider.
Right.
And, I could work with staff and circulate a draft that you all would approve in terms of a narrative.
But what's the rationale for doing the percentage increase?
I think it's to take into consideration inflation. It's not a catch up. It's
You're right.
just, yeah, it's I mean, from what I heard, we're keeping it in line with inflation and kind of on the low end at 2%.
And it's not a catch up in the context of Maryland seems to be for the Mid-Atlantic region, sort of in the middle. And if you look at the 50 states, we're in the upper whatever.
We're number 11, and I think we fell from 10 4 years ago, is what I heard. And we would probably be in about the same spot 4 years from now, would be my guess.
So, Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to get into semantics, but is it a better way to look at this as more of a COLA than a raise, so to speak? Is that sort of, or is that not a fair assessment of what we're talking?
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yes, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I agree. That's keeping also in alignment with any COLAs or increases for other state employees as well. So I agree.
So how do we feel about spreading it out similarly to how we did it 4 years ago with a $3,000 increase and then three $4,000 increases, or three $4,000 increases and then the 3,000 at the end or in the middle? I assume we're going to deal with round numbers, not specific inflation rates, since we don't even know what they will be.
Just using 2% gets us a not a very round number, I will say.
Right, what is it? Well, Jamar figured out it was about 15,600.
Well, if it's a 2% increase
I
from
didn't compound though, so my math may
Yeah,
not have been
there's some
spot on.
compounding, so
Yeah,
7, it would be a bit less than 15 if it's an even 2% from 195,000. It's more like 199,000 if you're rounding up.
the first year. Right,
2027, yes.
right. So it's probably actually more than 15 if you compound it.
Yeah, if you compound, it would be more.
Yeah. It would be more than 15,000 because the first year alone is almost 4,000.
Right.
So it's probably more like 16 or $18,000. I mean, we could do a flat 4,000 a year too.
Mm-hmm.
which is a diminishing percentage.
Right. Does anyone have a preference how to deal with this?
I like the numbers, and if we put the smaller one first. I mean, rather than doing the
Right.
numbers by percentage.
So
I mean, obviously,
198,
I like the treasurer's idea of we could at least call this sort of a COLA. Which in essence it is. And then have it, but I think should have the numbers rather than just the flat numbers rather than those determined by the 2% increase.
I'm looking at then the numbers that would be in our report would be for calendar year 27, 198,000.
Mhm.
And then the following 3 years, 202, 206, and 210.
So 2% of 195, I'm just thinking about the first year, is $3,900.
Which would get us to 198.9, and we're only going to 198.
Okay. So
So
in the first year, we're not doing
First year is slightly less than 2%,
got it. Okay.
which doesn't even keep up with inflation the last 2 years, which has been at 3 or just over 3%.
Well, can we just do what you suggested, which was the even numbers each year?
Yeah.
Yeah, 198, 202, 206, 210. It would put the smallest raise in the first year, giving some deference to budgetary constraints.
Mhm.
Not that,
Pardon
not
me,
that
Bruce. Could you say those numbers one more time? I'm just trying to quickly write those down.
2020, and this is just for the governor, 2027 would be 198,000.
198.
The following 3 years would be 202,000, 206,000, $210,000.
Thank you.
I don't know if that is the consensus of the committee. That's just numbers I've thrown out.
I support that recommendation, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if there's anyone else. I don't want to be overly semantic either. The COLA framework is a little bit problematic for me, only because the governor, for example, I don't think really has a whole lot of cost of living expenses. I mean, he lives in the state house, of course, and so I just want us to be mindful of that some of the trappings of the position, diminish the cost of living expenses that some of these officers have.
If we do the similar thing for the other officers that are all going to be at 175, is that right?
Everyone except Secretary of State.
Right. Do we look at the same 15,000 spread out over 4 years, or we do it more like 12,000, which would probably be more in line with a 2% increase? Or
What did you do last time?
I think there was more catch up that we were trying to do for those other
yeah,
officers.
There was.
yeah. They
Oh, right, I see.
yeah. It was
Much
it was
bigger.
a bigger raise, and it was front loaded in the beginning.
Right.
It was a big raise in the beginning, and then just 5,000, 3,000, 2,000 next year. And part of that was because of my recollections, part of that was the disparity between the Attorney General, Comptroller, and Treasurer and staff that worked for them. Which, I mean, there still is a great disparity. We didn't really fix that, but
I don't think you can.
yeah, I mean, we caught them up a little bit to the governor's pay. And if we want to keep them $20,000 behind the governor's pay, we could do the same do the same $15,000 raise spread over 4 years for our other constitutional officers.
So if we wanted to maintain the 20,000 delta, then we would just mirror the change, what we're doing for the governor.
Yeah, it would go 178, 182, 186, 190.
Yeah. Sounds reasonable. I mean, I don't. I'm okay with mirroring what the governor does and maintaining the $20,000 delta of the salaries. Versus the changes would be just 2% of one, starting with 2% of 175,000, which is, so the dollar increases would be smaller if we were.
Well, 2% would still get it to 178.5, so it's still not quite 2%, right?
Right. I mean,
Right.
Never mind.
Yeah.
3,000
it's-
would be
it's-
1.7%. So
Yeah. Is everybody okay with that approach?
Yes.
Yes.
The
Mr.
treasurer
it looks
is
like you wanted to say
burning
something.
and I want to hear what he's going to say.
I again, forgive me. This is only based upon, being a former legislator. The as I'm hearing the numbers out loud, and I'll just speak for myself. In no way am I speaking for a current member of the General Assembly. While the 2%, it makes sense and is reasonable, but it doesn't sound as whatever when you're talking about on maybe 60,000 a year or 65. But when you do that on like 175, 188, I think when you look at the number, not the percentage, but the number, and go, they're getting a $15,000 increase or 15,000. They're not going to look at, folks in general aren't going to look at it as a COLA or anything like that. They're going to see that raw number and go, that's a huge raise. Even though it's just a percentage, it's a small percentage, not out of line with what other employees are getting, but 2% on 60,000 versus 2% on 188, it doesn't hit the same. And so what I'm saying is, and this is where the part where I'm speaking for myself, I always loved it when whatever the salary commission put forward, because the other rule in that is if they don't act within, 30 days or whatever the case may be, it automatically becomes law. it was just easier because nobody wants to vote on the, or I didn't. Let me not speak for others. I never wanted to vote on my own salary. That just, it didn't land right with me. But if something looks, like that's a lot, it's going to turn into a political football, for a variety of reasons. It's going to turn into that, and something that's easily justifiable, and that we can certainly defend will probably become indefensible. And then at that point, if it becomes that political football, if it were me, then I'm voting no. I'm not going to jeopardize anything because, in the eyes of some, I'm looking greedy. So I was listening when I heard those numbers out loud. I'm like, geez, going from like 175 to 190 or whatever is, even though it's only 2%, it's the 15,000 number that's going to grab people. So I was thinking, well, something probably along the lines of a 7,000, which is basically, I guess, 1%, even though 1%, doesn't sound like much. But again, 1% on 60,000 a year or whatever is far different than 1% on the 188. And then you don't have that big number that just sort of stands out there like, wow, these jokers just gave themselves a $15,000 raise versus 7,500, which looks more reasonable and more palatable. Again, that's Derek Davis speaking. That's not members of the General Assembly. I'm not in any way trying to say that's how they feel. That was just how I always looked at it and felt about it. And just look at, like I said, listening to this, I wouldn't want, if the media or somebody started pressing me on that, I'm going to run from that number. I just am. And so that, I don't know what I'm trying to say here other than, what the reaction might be. I guess that's what I'm saying. That while they go, oh, we're well intended and 2% is defensible, if they see that 15,000 for the governor or myself or anybody like that, that's going to probably give heartburn.
But again, that 15,000 is over 4 years. It's not the one, it's not, we're not doing 15,000 for year one. It is spread out.
No, I get it. And you're absolutely correct. Like I said, this is easily defensible from our part, but what they're going to look at is not 4,000, I think, the public at large, they're going to go, the salary was 175 on this date, or, the last time, and they're going to see where it ultimately ends up, 190 or whatever. Yeah, I think it's 190. That sort of is going to be that comparison to what it was to what it will be, maybe not necessarily in, 4 installments.
Well, is that something we
right.
can,
That doesn't make me right. I'm just,
is that something that can be explained in the narrative that we submit? It can, or because I haven't seen a previous report, but is that something that we can elaborate on to kind of quell some of those concerns, or some of that initial 15, what they're seeing overall at the end total?
Now, I haven't done this before. I don't know if you all appear before the budget committee or whatever, but even with that, we'll have one opportunity to do this, but there'll be story day after day after day, and then there are interviews from different members and people weighing in. This body will only get one shot. That Bruce is very good, so I'm glad we elected him chair. He can defend it, but he's only going to get one shot. And this will be a recurring thing to the point that I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I'm playing out, things that I've seen and lived through in the past. Doesn't mean it's new group, new people, everything. So even reporters. But I'm just thinking, if somebody latches on to a certain number that they think is inappropriate or excessive or whatever the case may be, they're going to keep pounding it and pounding it and pounding it, to the point that, and we're not, like I said, we may get one shot to defend it, and that'll be that. And then the whole thing could probably go down because nobody wants to sort of carry that weight, going into an election year.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think 185 sounds more palatable than 190? Because 190 sounds like almost 200. It does sound like.
Absolutely. Anything, by definition, anything less is better. And I think, I think 185, you're talking about from the 175?
Yeah, all the way over the 4 years, spread 10,000 over 4 years. I'd say let's do 2,500 a year. And you get to 185 in 2030.
I think that's the outer limit of what may be able to swallow. But that again, and I can't emphasize it enough that I'm not bringing any whatever knowledge here. I'm just thinking, and I think what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, is probably at that outer limit of what folks can swallow. But I think if we go, and that may cause a little consternation, but beyond that, I think it's going to fall by the wayside simply because nobody wants to carry that, have to carry that into community meetings and debates and all those kinds of things.
Well, I agree that very few people actually read the report, which is always
Right.
well written by staff. The
Mhm.
headline is,
Right.
these officers got a $15,000 raise to 190 in 4 years from now. I understand that's the headline, or that's.
Do you feel that way about the governor also?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it feels the same for the governor. Not when county execs are making 225 in certain counties.
I think it's certainly easier to swallow. But
And 190 to 210 doesn't sound as big as 175 to 195, does it? Or 175 to 190. It seems like a bigger jump than 195 to 210. Even though it's the same, as Suzanne said, the same delta.
I frankly like the idea of having a little bit of a bigger delta between the governor and the other constitutional officers. And the only other observation I would make regarding your proposal, Mr. Chair, is perhaps that we, figure out a way to kind of phase in that increase similar to how we're doing for the governor, so that there's a lower increase the first year and then we go up the following 3 years.
Well, what we could do is because the numbers are so small, is do nothing in year 1 and 3, and in year 2 and 4 go 180 and 185, rather than like $2,000 raises. I mean, other commissions have done that, have not always phased it in. We could freeze it in year 1, and then it goes 175 to 180. Freeze it in year 3, and then it goes 185 for the last year. It feels reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Without having to give $1,500 raise the first year or something, it feels weird.
Yeah.
To me, it does.
Yeah.
I don't know how the group feels.
I do like it. Well, if you're looking for comment, I do like it split, and I do like maybe not doing it the first year, has been stated by everyone here. There is a raise coming in 26 for everybody this upcoming year. So I don't know that missing 27 is, going to cause that much consternation. And, while we have an idea of what the budget may look like, maybe not adding to it the next year, even in some small symbolic way, it's still a good message. And then maybe splitting it over the last 2 years. Mr. Chairman, you're probably right. Given really small raises, that may not be the best approach. And then, like I said, or as you say, splitting the 2 raises over 4 years, that may be more palatable. I like what you're suggesting.
So how do we feel about no raise in 27, a raise to 180 in 28, no raise in 29, and a raise to 185 the final year that we're considering? It's the same 10,000 spread over 4 years. And it does what Jamar wants to do, which is a slightly larger delta from the governor's salary.
I don't have a problem with it. I guess in my own mind, consistency can be a hobgoblin, but I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't we do that with the governors as well?
Right.
We could go no raise in 27 and
Like
205 and
1.5,
do 205 and 28 and then 210.
10,
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
Or do 20
right.
or just go 202 and 28 and then 210.
I'm sorry.
In other words, no raise in 27, a $7,000 raise, no raise in 29, and then an $8,000 raise. But then we're going back to the single freeze,
Right. I
which
mean,
is where we started.
We started.
well, if we went, yeah, I see.
But if you can do it for the lower constitutional offices, why not do it for the governor?
I'm okay with the freeze in 27 and then 2 raises. I think it looks consistent.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like
So
that too.
it would be 195 in 2027.
No, yes, it would stay at 195 and 27.
And
Would
then,
you all like me to bring up the spreadsheet? I put the numbers in. It shows the levels by year.
And then it would be
Please.
then it would be 202 in 28.
Mhm.
2025 or just 202?
Up to you. I don't have a strong feeling.
What is this, Eric?
That's the levels we're talking about. So it's the blue highlighted area
Oh,
that gets you to 15,000 for the governor, 10,000 for everyone else.
but
Mhm.
No, the 20 it would stay 202 and 29, Eric.
right. In
Ah.
29, it would be 202.
Two.
Hmm.
Okay, like that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, that's exactly what we'd be talking about. And it would fit with Suzanne's goal for consistency.
Mhm.
It sort of combines everything we've been talking about today, kind of a phrase, but not waiting and then raises.
Mhm.
I like that proposal. The only question is, what do we do about the Secretary of State's salary?
We got to look at that next. Secretary of State has considerably less duties, has historically, I think when I started doing this, was Secretary of State was only making $85,000 or $90,000. I mean, 2% of the Secretary of State's would be the 10,000 we just gave the other constitutional officers. Or we could just do $5,000 and go freeze 2,500, freeze 2,500, something like that.
Mhm.
So to be consistent, the Secretary of State would stay at 120 for sure in 27. Shouldn't be the only person getting a raise, right? Then in 28, the question is how much?
Well, 2% is $2,400, but we seem to be working an ultimate number and dividing it up. Like where
Right,
do you see in 40?
The governor got 15,000 spread over 4 years. The other constitutional officers got 10,000 spread over 4 years.
$5,000 spread over 4 years.
Somewhere between 5 and 10, right?
Yeah, I would say somewhere
It's
between
either,
5 and 10.
it's either 5 or 10 or somewhere in between.
Well, I don't know that 10 doesn't feel right to me.
Right. I mean, we could split the difference at 7,500.
70. I was
Yeah.
just, we seem to be looking at round numbers, so. Yeah. One,
Or 8,000.
Yeah. 8 seems fair.
so 124 in 2028 and 2029, and then 128 in 2030.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Tom and Eric, is this the last piece we have to consider?
Secretary of State is the, yes.
Right?
Well, yes. And I mean, we do need to schedule the final meeting though.
Yeah, yeah. And we all have to get sworn in and come back and vote on this and have it written up and. Is everybody comfortable with
Mhm.
8,000 for the Secretary of State spread out as we're doing the other officers?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
See, I never know where we're gonna go when we start these meetings. And we always get to the right amount, I think. Treasurer Davis, do you have any concerns about an $8,000 raise spread over 4 years for the Secretary of State?
No,
Okay.
I think that's consistent, with what the mindset that we've done everything else.
And
And
Anissa, am I saying your name right? Is it Anissa?
Anissa,
Anissa, I'm
yes,
sorry.
that's okay. Now, a question about if we've already been sworn in, is there anything we needed to provide to you all? Like, do you need a copy of that letter or?
Yeah.
I don't think we I don't think DLS staff store that, but I mean, you're welcome to send us
Okay.
a copy and we can put it in the records.
Okay.
We'll definitely need the Senate appointees sworn in though.
Yeah, my recollection is I'm supposed to take a letter of appointment to the clerk, and I don't think I've seen a letter of appointment.
Well,
I have not either.
the thing, so I just was sworn in this morning, and the letter that the Speaker's office sent to Vicky Gruber indicating my appointment to the commission was the letter that I took
Right.
that the clerk then notarized.
Yes.
So did the president's office send a letter designating you three as to Vicky Gruber?
I don't think so. I think
I
I
don't
got
think
the
so.
disclosure form, though.
Yeah, I got the disclosure form.
They may be waiting on the disclosure forms to be, I don't know if you all have finalized those.
I submitted mine.
No, I
Yeah, so
submitted
did I.
mine right away. Did
I
they
did
got it?
We can check.
Yep.
We can check with them. We'll put you on a email chain.
But the important thing is to have, has anybody from the who is appointed by the president been sworn in? The Senate? Okay, so
And
No.
disclosure forms,
They came early on with the
Yeah.
appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did those early.
I
Okay.
don't know. I missed that one
If
completely.
you're sworn, you're okay. Don't go rethink. Don't overthink
Good,
it.
I'm good because I don't have to do anything more.
Eric, can you contact the president's office on our behalf? Or
We will
should-
do that, and we'll put you on the message.
Great.
All right. I don't think I can entertain a motion to finalize this because some
No.
of us have not been sworn in. So do you want to just set the next meeting and to recap?
We're
Let's
done. Yes, sir.
You have the numbers that we've sort of agreed on, right?
staff will compile those into a document. We can
And the
provide-
Secretary of State, we're talking about the same, you know, no increase, 4,000, no increase, 4,000.
Yeah.
It's the same structure. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. Thank you.
This is always such a thoughtful group.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, can we go over the Secretary of State, I have 120, 120, 124, 124,
No, just 120.
Oh, 120.
So in 2027, it would be 120.
120.
In 28, it would be 124. In
Right.
29, it'd be 124.
Okay.
And 2030, it would be 128.
Okay, that's what I have that. Okay.
This is always such an interesting exercise.
So could we schedule the next meeting? Would everyone be available maybe late the week of January 5th or early the first week of session?
As long as I can communicate from Florida, any of those times.
We can make it virtual
Sorry
again.
to rub that
Yep.
in, gang, but
I'm sorry, you're looking at what week?
What days?
So either the week of January 5th or maybe the week of the 12th, but that is the first week of session. So the schedule will be tighter.
I have a lot of flexibility both weeks.
Would Thursday the 8th around this time be good?
Hang on.
10 a.m. on January 8th.
Can we
That
do
works
it,
for
if we
me.
got to do it on the 8th, can we do it a little bit later? I got something I have to attend the morning of the 8th. Or if I can miss it as well. I mean, that's,
No.
it sounds like we've got the heavy lift done, but
Sure.
the morning of the 8th would be tight for me.
Well, we're gonna need 5 votes.
We
That
need-
doesn't give us a lot of
I think it would be helpful to have you present if we could accommodate.
Yeah.
So
Is it
sounds like
possible to do it on another date?
We could.
we could do, would the 7th work?
Yes.
Wednesday?
Do you have BB
Yes.
Well,
that day?
Can I ask, typically staff finalizes the report after the final meeting. I don't think we've ever actually done the report prior to the final meeting because some of the narrative is what we've actually done at the final meeting.
Okay.
So that might be a potential issue, depending on how you all want that handled.
Why is it different on the 7th and the 8th?
One, let's say.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I don't understand. Sorry, Eric, you said that it was okay to meet on the 8th, but not to meet on the 7th. I didn't understand why.
So I was just thinking about if you all wanted the report to be semi
Yeah.
finalized, it's hard for us to do that before the actual final meeting. So if you wanted that, it would give us more time to finalize the report. Because most of our like staff are gone until that first.
Oh, your preference is later in the week to give you an extra day to do the report.
If you all want, you know.
How about the 9th?
About the
I'm
9th
good on the
then.
9th.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone have a morning, afternoon preference?
Morning.
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 10 a.m.
Yep.
All right. And were there any other questions for staff? Any research questions, or are we pretty settled?
My only request is that we actually send a calendar invite for the 9th.
Okay.
I'm perfectly capable of calendaring things, but it's helpful.
It's helpful.
If you send me a calendar invite.
We can send out a group invite just to say, save the time, please.
Okay,
And
thank you
that
so
way it's on
much.
your calendar.
Thank you.
All right. So, the other reason for having it a bit later is it will give all of you the need to be sworn in extra time to do that at the beginning of the year, assuming you're not able to get it done before the end of this year.
I'll tell you, next week, there was no availability to be sworn in. So as the holidays are, at least in Anne Arundel County, because of the
Good to know.
holiday.
Okay.
Okay.
hopefully that, I mean, hopefully that first full week of the new year, they should have something.
Yeah.
Because we definitely need you sworn in. Otherwise, we can't actually finalize anything. So we will contact the Senate President's office and try to get that worked out as soon as possible. And I think that is all from staff, unless you all have anything else.
No, thank you all for your input.
Good work.
And
Thank
staff,
you.
thank you for getting us ready with all the historical data.
Yes, very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And Mr. Treasurer, I'm glad that you got to see how the sausage is made.
Yes, you should see what I see. Thank you all very much, and happy holidays to everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays. Take care, everyone.
All right, so Lauren hopefully will end the stream.